Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Chad Vaughn, and on today's episode, we have Scott Panchik. Now, Scott is one of the most legendary athletes that we've come across within the CrossFit community, having competed as an individual for the past decade at the CrossFit Games, finishing 7 times in the top 10, another 2 times in 11th place, including this year in 2021. And he also was on pace to finish on the podium with CrossFit Mayhem as part of their team in 2020 before COVID hit. He is an incredible athlete, but an even better person. We're really excited to talk with him, being that this was his last CrossFit Games. He did announce his retirement after the competition in Madison a couple of weeks ago. We talk a little bit about what's next for him, what it was like to compete in his final games with his brother by his side, who finished in 5th place. Also winning the Spirit of the Games award, and now being a new dad, and how that has influenced his training, his perspective on life, as well as his perspective on what it means to be an athlete. Love talking with Scott. He's been to camp with us in the past, and he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. We hope you guys enjoy this one. All right, Mr. Scott Panchik, how you doing, buddy? It's so great to see you. On Zoom is better than not seeing at all, but it's been such a long time since we haven't had a chance to hang out. So thanks for taking the time to be with me and chat today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here with you guys, and it's been a great day.
Yeah, you're mentioning, it being a little bit of a crazy day today, you being a dad now and having the gym and all the other things you got going on in your life. How is it being a dad and being an athlete at the same time right now? Is it something that you feel is manageable, or is that one of the reasons why you decided to call the career as an endpoint?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I felt like this year was probably one of my favorite years of competing, and a year that I felt like I really have figured out how to balance a lot. And having a little girl now, a lot of people are like, oh man, that's got to be so hard. I'm like, no, I love it. Like when I'm having a bad day in the gym, I walk out of that gym and walk into the house and I see her, and it's just like, everything's great. Like it was a workout. Like, I'm just like, it was a workout. It's so silly. Like, why would you be upset about that? And 2013, I'd be beating that in my head for the whole night until the next day, until I got a chance to kind of redeem myself in that way. So it's definitely given me some clarity, that I'm not just defined as a CrossFitter, being a husband and a father and a friend. And there's so many different areas of my life, from being a leader and a coach at our affiliate. Those things have really become a big part of my life. And I see myself not just as a CrossFitter. And I have a football background, so I used to be just a football player. And then when I first got into CrossFit, I was a CrossFitter, and it was just so focused on me in that way, that over the years, I've just found so much joy in figuring out how to balance life. And this last year of CrossFit at the Games was the truest version of Scott Panchik. And I felt like people got to see that with me on the floor through each event. And, I didn't get what I set out to do, but I felt like I left something, a mark on the community that will be remembered. And it's also something that I'm very proud of to share with my daughter someday, that I know will help her through some tough times, whatever those times may bring.
I love hearing that. And I think I want to talk a little bit about the Games. We'll get into that in a second, but just kind of building off what you mentioned about being a dad now and having a daughter. We got four girls between the 3 of us. We are our girl dads for life.
Ooh, man.
Nothing better, man.
We must be full of testosterone, right? They say that guys that have all girls have more testosterone, I think.
Absolutely.
It's a special thing for sure. And perspective, right? I think what you're getting back to is having something to come home to that lets you leave what's at the gym, bad workout, whatever it might be, and be able to come home and say, life is good, even with those bad situations that might be happening at the gym. It gives you perspective as to what really is important in life. And I think that's one of the things that maybe an athlete that is either single or maybe doesn't have a significant other or doesn't have a child isn't able to kind of fully grasp yet. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think early on when I was in 2012, 2013, I was a single guy, and I was focused on being a teacher, a football coach, and an athlete. And it was really a lot about me. And that can be lonely at times. My family was all in Pittsburgh before we opened our affiliate, CrossFit Mentality. And they relocated out to this area. And I just felt like I got to be a brother again. I got to be a son. Not that I wasn't from a distance, but I think there's just something a little different when you bring those people back into your life. And opening CrossFit Mentality and having a community there, I just felt like my family has continued to grow. My friendships have flourished. And when you can start to find other things in your life aside from the one thing that maybe you were defining yourself as early on, you can really find that happiness and that balance, and you recognize all the great things that life has to offer, and that being an athlete is just one of those things.
Mm-hmm. I was terrible at that, Chad. This is something you talk about quite a bit. That I was always athlete, highest level. You're a little selfish. Everything else kind of goes out the window. Yeah, you gotta have to be, but
you do.
Hearing from you, and I've heard from others too, and Chad, you're one of the people that have spoken on this on the podcast before, and just to me in general, about when you had Ella, and it actually made you a better athlete, and you were able to do things that you weren't able to do when you were just by yourself. And I find that to be fascinating, because I was always scared at the idea of not being able to reach my full potential if I had what I consider to be potential distractions. And they're not distractions, right? They're actually enhancing to your lifestyle and giving you that sense of balance that you might gloss over, that you might think you don't need as an athlete, and say, like, I'm just going to put all my energy into this, but it ends up becoming more of a detriment than it does a benefit. Would you say that, Chad, for you, Ella was a benefit to your training and not something that was a distraction?
Yeah, hearing Scott talk about it, it's more proof to me that it's such a great example of the power of balance. We keep saying balance and using the word balance, and that's so important. And I think that we as elite athletes, especially when we're on our own, without learning those lessons, we are out of balance, and we're performing at a high level and achieving the accomplishments that we're accomplishing, being out of balance. And for me, even though right after my daughter was born, I'm more tired, I'm getting less sleep. So it seems like physically I should be performing less, but my workouts became better. I was recovering better because I had better balance. And a year and a half after my daughter was born, at the age of 31, I lifted my best total ever at the national championships. And so even though, again, I was more tired and I was doing other things and spending less time in the gym, that immediate kick into balance was an immediate improvement for my life as a whole, and for my recovery and my performance and everything. And so I'm excited to hear Scott say that. And I think that really anyone, even if you don't have kids, hopefully you can take that kind of as a lesson, right? As a lesson to be motivated, to be a little less hard on yourself, to make it a little less about you and a little less about your training, and find, maybe you don't have to go have a kid, right? But find some sort of beneficial distraction. And it made me realize too, like, I wish that I would have done that. I wish I would have found some sort of distraction, and that distraction could have been coaching, reaching out and coaching other people, which would have taken a little bit away from me, but in the end gave more to me as a performer.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to hear you talk about the coaching side of things, because, working with my younger brothers, and then I have another athlete, Fisa Gaffi. They're high level athletes. And one of the things that I told them, I said, I truly believe a big reason that I was able to continue doing this for 10 years is bringing someone along for the ride. And it could be anyone. It doesn't need to be them making it to the CrossFit Games. Just having someone to pour your heart into and to share victories with. At a certain point, like, PRs didn't happen as often. Coming out of Power Monkey camp, when you taught me how to do some pause squats and some pause dips, and I came back and started getting some PRs again. But at a certain point, it gets challenging to see that growth, because it's so small and it's not always measurable in pounds.
Right.
And even at the CrossFit Games, like we constantly measure ourselves based off of our placement, which isn't fair because the test is different every year. So that can definitely eat you up and spit you out. But, you know, having younger athletes or just other people that you're pouring into, from a coaching standpoint, it allows you to enjoy their success, because, you know, watching my younger brothers starting to lift heavy and PRing like every couple months, I'm just like, man, this is incredible. And so like, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed coming in there and being like, oh guys, how you feeling today? And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm wrecked. And they're like, good, I'm ready to go. And I'm just like, you know, that's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with, is, you know, people that you can pour into, and you know, and I don't think they realize it, that they are pouring great energy back into me. And that can be very, very good and healthy for your relationship inside the gym or whatever it is that you're doing.
Now, you talked about a decade of doing this at the highest of high levels. You had 7 top 10 finishes. You had 2 11ths in there, right outside, right, this year and back in 2018. 3 fourth place finishes just off the podium, and then the 2020 year that was kind of lost in there. And like talk a little bit about that potential year in there too. But first off, congrats, man, on just a spectacular career. You know, you're an absolute legend within the sport. The Spirit of the Games award this year could not have been made for anyone more deserving than yourself. So congrats on that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. And I think anyone who knows the sport would say the same. Do you feel like this was the right time, both physically and mentally, for you to be done? Or was there kind of an extenuating circumstance that said, you know, this is time for me to be done with everything from an individual standpoint?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've always been looking for to know when I was done is not just that I like hit a very, very high level of fitness, but clarity on looking back on my career and being proud of it. And I think for a long time, and this is something that has helped me as well. So it's not, you know, it's not a bad thing in some cases, because I think it's propelled me to evolve with the sport. But I was the guy that came home from the CrossFit Games year after year and was not happy. And I looked at my placement and I wanted to win. And anything else but winning was failing. And I was like, back to the board. What do I need to do? What do I need to change every year after year? And I just felt like there was going to be this point where I finished and I was just like, okay, like it all paid off. I'm so proud of that. And with the test changing year after year, you know, when I look back on it and I really think about it, I'm like, the test is different. The athletes you're competing against are different. I mean, you're rolling the dice. You know, 15 other events could have showed up and you stand on top of the podium, you know, or 15 events show up and you take 20th because it wasn't what you had put focus into on that year. So I think the consistency, when I look back, I'm like, the consistency of being there year after year. The one year I wasn't was a year I had qualified to go as a team. So, you know, 10 years of making it to the CrossFit Games and setting out to do that year after year is something I'm very proud of. You know, being up near the top and being someone that was a contender to stand on the podium year after year is something I'm proud of. And I wouldn't have said that many other years. And I think, you know, it took me driving down to Madison this past year. And I had mentioned throughout the year, I was like, I think this might be my last year, because I knew it was going to be my best year. And I was like, I am fitter than I've ever been. And I had full confidence over like any other year. I was like, this is the year I'm going to be on the podium. I don't know where it's going to be. I'm going to be on the podium. And I knew, and I said it, I'm going to do it. And I kept saying, though, this might be my last year. This could be my last year. Maybe this is it. And at no point did I really say it. And I think once I figured out on the way down that I had everything, or I have everything that it takes to stand on the podium, and I recognize that, and I say it to myself. And then I look back on my career knowing this is the best version of me at 33 going on 34, like, you know, 10 years in the sport. And there was just this kind of like peace of mind. And my buddy asked me, he goes, what would it take for this to be your last year? Because you've said on a number of occasions, it could be, you know, and I realized that, you know, it was going to take me winning. It was going to take me winning. And even then I think I might've said, I'm fitter than I've ever been. Let's come back and do it again, because there's guys that have been able to, they do it year after year. So it was like, it was almost like realizing that there wasn't really an outcome that was going to leave me fulfilled in the sport. And I needed to find that fulfillment in my heart, really. And knowing that, you know, what I set out to do in the sport was to build a name and something that my family and my daughter would be proud of. And I had done that. And I'd done that probably after the first year, but you know, I think the other years were geared for me to you know, keep pushing and striving to do something. And you know, once I decided that this was going to be it, I going into the weekend, I knew my knee was not great. I didn't know if resting it for, you know, 3 or 4 days would give me enough time to come in and compete at a high level. Unfortunately, it didn't. But I knew it was the best version of me, and announcing it made it really special. It made it something that I could enjoy with the community. And there was just something different about going into each and every event. Each and every moment of the weekend was incredible. I spoke and talked to more athletes than I ever have, which usually I stay in my lane and I stay focused. You know, that was always the word: focus. Be focused on what you need to do. When you finish an event, stay focused on moving forward, and, you know, don't get too wrapped up in the leaderboard and but that was always something you do anyways.
Sure.
But being able to run onto the floor and hear this like kind of a different roar from the crowd. There were people running alongside of me in an event that, you know, my knee I couldn't run fast enough. I was in a lot of pain, but I knew I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to stop until I, you know, couldn't move forward. And then just having moments that I knew, winning an event, like I won 2 events, and in all these 10 years, I think I won 1 other event at the CrossFit Games. So to have 2 event wins and to kind of throw some haymakers in there on some events that, you know, my knee wasn't giving me issues on, and see that my training paid off, and to have moments throughout the weekend where I'm looking back and I'm like, man, my knee was banged up, but like, I was really proud of 11th. I was proud to have beat people that were healthy. And, you know, I knew it was a different weekend. Usually I'm very consistent through the whole weekend, and consistency usually, you know, brings you up to the top. But I knew I was going to have some events that were going to be problemsome. I don't even know if that's a word.
We got you.
But you know what I mean? And I knew I was going to have to hit some home runs to make up for those events. And it was a different kind of weekend, and I got to enjoy some home runs and show that, you know, I've gotten a lot fitter in some areas, and my training is paying off. And I think it was just the most joy that I've ever had. And being able to walk up and down that platform after my final event, or even before the final event, looking up in the stands and seeing my wife and my daughter on the Jumbotron, I about lost it. And I've cried more this year than I ever have in my life. I don't know if that's from having kids or what, but
yeah.
But yeah, it was just pure joy. And in that moment, when I was sitting on that rower looking at my daughter and my wife, I felt like a champion. And it was a great feeling to have, walking up and down the platform, the send off the CrossFit community gave me. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen a community roar for someone who just took 11th place. You know, that was like and holding my daughter with the Spirit of the Games award and standing on that platform was like, I wanted that moment as the fittest man on earth. I didn't get it, but I felt like I got something even better, and something that I think will resonate more with my daughter than me being the fittest man on earth. So I'm excited to be able to share what I learned in these 10 years with her, There was moments throughout the weekend I got to pour into athletes that were rookies, halfway through their career, and maybe guys that are coming near the tail end, things that I would want to know if I was in their shoes. And to be able to share those things, I just felt like I was there for a different reason this year. And it was a great way to cap off my career.
Man, I think you left us speechless because I'm just sitting here.
Wipe my tears here.
No.
I don't know if you can tell, but like my eyes are getting watery because it's just emotional.
Sure, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, truly,
a pleasure to watch over the past decade. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just have chills just listening to you that whole time, and knowing what you have been through the 10 times you went to the games and how consistent you are, and incredible performer and athlete that you are. It fulfills me in this moment to know that you were able to have those moments, that you can leave with those. That's bigger than anything. All of us as athletes, we have our disappointments, we have our failures, we have our successes, and we do have to find ways to move on. And a part of moving on is accepting what, the failures and the successes that you have had, and being okay with those, finding a way to be okay with those, and seeing where your place was and your position was. And that's hard to do. And it's so awesome that you had those moments there at your last CrossFit Games. Now, we do want to ask you if you plan on doing any masters or teams or anything like that. Is that part of your retirement as well? But at your retirement announcement, your last individual CrossFit Games performance there, so thankful that you had those moments, and so very well deserved for you to get that award and for you to be able to have those moments to be able to move through the rest of your life with.
Yeah, it was really special. And I don't really know what's next. I know I'm an athlete and I'll always be an athlete, and I like to have things to work towards. We're 2 weeks out, and I'd be lying if I didn't tell you. I told someone else this on a podcast. If the crowd would have started chanting one more year, I might have chucked up. I might have chucked up the one and been like, all right. But it's those things definitely cross your mind. And I know my wife has told me, she's like, if you want to keep being an individual, you can go and do that. And physically, I feel like I could keep doing this, and I could do it for a long time. Whether it's on a team, trying to be an individual, and slowly fading away into the darkness. But I felt like, stepping away from the individual side, especially, is just that was the way I wanted to walk away. I wanted to walk away on my terms. My football career got cut short. I blew out my knee, and I just remember them wheeling me off the field and feeling very helpless in that moment. And I almost was having kind of flashbacks to that this year. And it was really upsetting in that way, because I felt like the same thing was about to happen. Like, here I am. That was my senior year, and my year to I wanted to shine. And I felt like this was the year. And I was like, this is the fittest you've ever been. And, there was this fear of not finishing. It wasn't even so much about winning at that point. It was just I wanted this to just be my best year yet. And it was, but it was just in a different way. And, being able to finish in that way and enjoy those moments with the crowd running next to me, and, coming through on a handstand walk that I knew wasn't going to bother my knee, that I was just and getting across that finish, even rolling across the finish line on the final event. I was like, who cares what happens to my knee at this point? I finished, and diving across to try to beat Travis at the end was it was amazing. And those are things I always remember. Team and masters, it's not out of the question. If the right team was to come along, or rules were to change, masters, who knows? I like to train, and I like to have something to work towards. I think that keeps me healthy, keeps me grounded. And I believe I could do that in a short period of time, in a smart, healthy way, that doesn't affect my family. But what was the hard part was this was mentally growing with the sport as it evolved over the last 10 years. That's what got exhausting to me. The training side I loved. When I was writing my own programming, that was getting challenging near the tail end of my career as well, of just trying to figure out how to break through some barriers and be creative and doing some things that you hadn't done before. So, obviously teaming up with Mayhem for the year that I worked with those guys, I felt like that made me a better athlete. And coming back after that, I knew that I had become a better athlete. So that was why I wanted to come back and give individual one more shot instead of trying to create another team. But mentally, that's what I told my wife. I'm just tired mentally. And it's more so like how it kind of can consume your mind a little bit. And I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Mm-hmm. It's thinking about your next workout. It's thinking about what went well that day, what didn't go well, and what changes you need to make to be great. Mm-hmm. And I want to shift that focus into some of those other areas that I'm defining myself as now. Mm-hmm. How can I be a better dad? How can I be a better husband? How can I become closer to God? Those are all things that are very important to me. And I want to be able to shift that focus. And my wife said something to me that blew my mind. You guys will love this. She's like, well, if you're not thinking about CrossFit, you're going to fill that space with something else. And I was like, you're right. And she's just like, so like, what are you going to fill it with? Mm-hmm. She's like, why not just keep it with CrossFit? If you want to keep going. And I was just like, dang, babe. All right. Like,
she wants to keep you out of trouble. Keep you out of trouble.
Let's go. Yeah.
She's throwing up the one finger.
Yeah. So, it's amazing to know that I have that support to mm-hmm. jump into, whatever that next venture is, and to know that she's on board. But, for me, it was like, okay, how do I fill that space with things that are good for me, that are going to be fulfilling and not draining on my life or on my mind in that way. And mm-hmm. that's what this past month's been, since I've returned from the games is what can I do next that is good for me, good for others, and leads to me, paying it forward in some ways to maybe the people that have supported me over the last 10 years, or the community, pouring back into the community in some way. So yeah, it's, I don't know what's next, but it'll be fitness oriented. I can tell you that.
Well, you can always just be a master's weightlifter. There's way less to think about in weightlifting.
Every episode, Chad is trying to get somebody to lift more.
I'm trying to recruit. I love weightlifting, so I'm trying to recruit people.
I like your style. I
am curious, Scott. You brought up the kind of lost year of 2020, having made the change from going from an individual to a team, what it was like to participate with this behemoth that is Mayhem, and being a part of Rich's team. Can you talk a little bit about what that training experience was like? You said it kind of helped you as an individual as well, maybe from the programming side or whatever it might have been. But yeah, can you go into, it was a lost year, right? You guys were on pace to be the super team that was going to be unbeatable, just as most Mayhem teams have been over the years. But I'm curious kind of what the year was like from a training perspective, and then what it was like mentally to lose out on that season that, you had trained for to be part of that team.
Yeah. So when I made the decision to go team, and it was mainly because I felt like I had hit this like wall, or ceiling per se, where I didn't know what I could do to get better. And there was only a handful of guys that beat me consistently, and Rich was one of them. So there wasn't a lot of people that I would trust and say, hey man, like, I'm going to let you just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. And there was something very freeing about that idea to me. So that attracted me to wanting to be on a team. I don't know if I would have like wanted to create a team or try to figure those things out on my own. Obviously with them having the history that they have in the sport, him as an individual, and then again as a team, that was not something I wanted. Like that was going to be too challenging. And I just wanted to be an athlete and see if I could get better. And this is a guy that I thought could do that. So, joining up with them and just completely letting go of the reins of programming. And I'd done that for 8 years for myself. And I had some help in some areas. Both of you guys have actually played a part in, my training progression over the last 8 years, from gymnastics and Olympic weightlifting that got me past some roadblocks. So thank you. But this was another kind of step to evolving with the sport. So joining those guys, I was very excited to get to like just kind of lift that weight off my shoulders and focus on being an athlete, which left me more present at home. It left me more present with our community at CrossFit Mentality, which was amazing. And I got to be an athlete, just an athlete, and not a coach per se. So I loved it. I worked really hard, and I actually was doing more training with them than I did when I was an individual, which I thought like,
wow,
team will be retired, the retirement. And that was not the case by any means. But I found that when I'm not trying to write things, I had more time to train, and just adding, volume, which took me 8 years to be able to train like that. I think a lot of people think you can just step in and start doing high volume, multiple sessions a day. And they're like, my body's breaking down. I'm like, yeah, because you didn't put the years in to get to that point. And so being able to train with those guys all like right away, I was just like, wow, this is like a lot different. I'm getting more done in a day from an athlete perspective, family perspective, and coaching perspective. So it helped me find some balance in that way. And then getting out there and actually spending some time with the crew out there made me feel like part of the community again, where I feel like I was always leading our gym and coaching. And, I worked out with my brothers for a long time. So it was just 3 of us. And then I worked out with Fisa Gaffi for a long time, and it was really just 2 of us. But the days I enjoyed the most were like Saturdays, when all my friends would come in and we'd, work out, and they'd scale workouts, and then we go get pizza, and then they'd spend the whole rest of the next week recovering so they could do it again the following Saturday. So I got to experience that. So going out there and training, I'm like, man, these guys just love to work hard. And they're like, you want to do another one? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I was always the guy like, hey, you want to do another one? So like having a group of people that, really, really just pushed you, and being alongside Rich in a different way of, seeing him interact with his athletes, and then really speaking his faith was something that was very impressive to me. My wife and I went through a very difficult season of our life right around then. And it was something that ended up being a positive, as it drove me closer to my relationship with God. And, Rich and the Mayhem team, fostered that development, or spoke a lot of life into me and into those situations. And, just having someone to turn to that could help you through a tough time in that way was amazing. And I think it just speaks volumes to the types of individuals that are out there. They're not just great athletes, but they're great people as well. And that's the thing is like, and you see it in CrossFit gyms, bad people find their way out, because you can't fake it till you make it. And there's something about good people that are willing to work hard. And that's what that group of people is out there. And that whole team, Tasia, China, they're just amazing human beings. And I think it just brought back that love for the camaraderie, and made me feel like I was on a team again. That same feeling that you had when I played college football and things like that. So being able to go to some events was very stress-free. I felt the feeling I had walking onto the floor with that team was like nothing I've ever felt
92
before. Oh, I mean, there was definitely a little swag to my step when I walked onto the floor. I was like, yeah, let's go.
Sure.
So, the stress and being able to share that stress, and it can be good stress in that way of walking on the floor and knowing that you have people that have your back, that how hard they've worked, and you can rely on them. And when you're doing something like worm squat or worm clean and jerk or anything team oriented, that somebody's got your back. That if you're tired, they're pushing and they're digging in. There's not one person that's like taking it easy and letting you do the work. Matter of fact, there's people that are ready to help you do the work. And I think it was just that it just being part of a team just kind of lit a fire in me. And coming back and out of that season, we qualified for the games. We won 2 sanctioned events, getting to travel and do some things with them. It kind of lit this fire inside of me. And I started to see a different athlete when I was training on my own. I knew I'd gotten better. And this year at the games, I came out of the swim. I spent the last 2 years swimming, and I was like, man, I'm gonna crush this swim. Let's go. And I came out in like 7th, and I was like, yes. And then I got in that kayak, and I was like, no, like 18 guys just go blowing by me on this kayak. And I was like, dang it. But in years past, I would have been really upset and not looked at the swim as something I'd gotten better at. And I knew I got better in that. And the handstand, winning events, like I believe that they helped me improve in some of those areas, and just kind of helped me punch through that ceiling a bit to become a better athlete.
Nice.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am going to echo everything you said about the Mayhem team. We're lucky enough to be close with them from our camp being just right down the road from them, and they have been such a huge part of what we do. And we love everything that they're all about. And I think you're exactly right that good people have a tendency to find each other, and they're as good as it gets down there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Scott, you mentioned a lot about football. I think most everyone knows that you played college football. What do you think you most took from your years of playing football, high school combined with college, that you brought into yourself as an athlete in CrossFit that helped you be so successful for so long?
Honestly, I feel like I was a wrestler. My parents got me into wrestling at a really young age. So from like 3rd through 8th grade, I wrestled. And then I got into indoor track to get faster for football, and came back out my senior year to wrestle. And when I look at all the sports I played, I feel like that helped me the most in CrossFit, because it taught me how to win and taught me how to lose, and how to be able to move forward and learn from both experiences. Football, I would say that it taught me how to work hard. Obviously at a college level, there's always someone that wants your position. They want to take it from you. And, me being the person I am, I said, there's no way I'm going to let someone take my position by them outworking me. I have no problem with someone working hard and then being more gifted than me in some areas, but I will not let someone that is as gifted as I am outwork me and get that spot. So it taught me how to work and really pursue this being great in every area that I could, to be the best football player I could be. And then when I found CrossFit, it was like kind of similar in that way. And early on, it was a lot about like, all right, who's willing to hurt more? I was like, man, I know I can hurt. I actually like that. And I always felt like growing up, I was very good in a lot of sports. I played a lot of sports. My parents had me in just about everything. But what I always felt like I was best at was training, because I loved to work hard, and I knew that I would outwork everyone. I was like, I'm never going to let someone take my position in any sport because they outworked me. And I think that carried with me for a long time. And at a certain point, when I got into CrossFit, we were all figuring it out. And I was just like, I will hurt as bad as you want me to hurt. I'll do you want me to run through that wall over there? Okay. I'm going to run through that wall. Do you want me to do it again? Rest 5 minutes and then do it again? Okay. You tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it. And I think that mentality is what has helped me, at least early on, become the athlete that I am. And then, obviously never being happy with how I placed was, the other thing that propelled me forward. And, that pushed me forward for 10 years, whether it was healthy or not, it did. But I think over the course of those 10 years, having people around me, that's that team like atmosphere. Like I loved, even when I was training for other sports growing up, I'd love to just bring someone along. I'm like, hey, come do this workout. I remember taking one of our defensive linemen through Fran for the first time. And he had like a 600-pound squat or something ridiculous. And I'm like, all right, and he could do pull-ups, and, he was a pretty strong guy. And I remember bringing him in. He did this workout with me and he's like, "That's it?" I was like, "Yeah, that's it." And he didn't finish it. I mean, he was throwing up. I couldn't believe it. And I was just like, and I loved it. And so like being able to share that with people, and not all of them were like that, but he's the one that comes to mind, was amazing.
Yeah, I have a question about that mentality, because as you're describing that, I can very much relate to that. I can remember telling myself over and over and over through the years, which I see as kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing, that if I fail, it will never be because I didn't do enough. And I think that mentality is one reason why I was as good as I was, but I also know that it caused me to do too much for a large portion of my career where I worked myself backwards. Do you feel that that's the case for you? Was it mostly a positive for you, or was it mostly a negative for you? Or was it both?
I went through seasons for sure. It's interesting, and I'm sure both of you guys can relate to this, but I believe there's this like line that goes across, and basically it's like, think of it as an overtraining line. And if you want to be one of the most elite athletes in the world, you're trying to get as close to that line as you can without going over it. And for me, that was training. And there's times I go over the line. I sat under that line all year, and I had my best year: open, quarterfinals, semifinals. And I just went up over that line for a little bit too long. And, my knee got flared up, and I ran into an injury right before the biggest part of the year. So, I definitely think that there are times that we go over that line, and it ends up, setting us back. And I think as athletes, you have to be okay with that, because if you're not pushing that line, you might not ever get the opportunity to be there in the first place.
Right.
And I think that, those types of things will happen. And to be the best and to win it all, you have to be willing to lose. And I think that that's definitely, happened to me before. I ruptured my plantar fascia from trying to get better at running. And I went into the games with plantar fasciitis, and partially ruptured it during the first event in 2015. I chased a snatch in 2013. It was a PR. Nobody was in the gym, but I think one other guy, and was amping myself up and lucked into getting under one and chased it. And, I ended up having to get surgery on my shoulder that year after the games. So, but you hit that lift, you have confidence now when you go in a competition to put it on the bar. And it didn't keep me from putting it on the bar after I had surgery. I think that weight was like 275 at the time, and I snatched 300 this year. So, you're building confidence. And for me, it's been figuring out what works. With CrossFit, early on, there was just a point where I was just like, hey, I'm going to go and do something crazy today. I'm going to do 2 workouts. I'm going to go back and I'm going to work out again. Right. And, we were figuring things out. And I think as I've progressed, I've gotten smarter with training. But I don't think those little injuries and things can always be prevented. But I think, you put yourself at a higher risk when you start, pushing the envelope on what you can do. And, for me, I wasn't setting out to just get on the podium. I wanted to go and win the games, and I was doing what I believed was going to get me there. Because I part of me felt like anything else wasn't going to be enough. So, I knew every day when I went into the gym, I said to myself, and there were so many times that this happened, I said, this is a moment right now where I'm in the gym and I'm beating everybody right now. I believe the person that wins the CrossFit Games doesn't win the CrossFit Games that weekend. They win it in the off season, and the moments that they want to go home, they want to be done. And other people stop. And you're doing what 99.9999999% of people are not doing. And I went after that on a regular. I was just like, no one else is doing this. No one else is working harder than me. And that was my mentality for 10 years was I will not let someone outwork me.
I love this. And Chad, I love the question. And I think the response is spot on. And I think all three of us kind of fall in the same boat in terms of maybe not being the most talented guys in the world within our respective sports, but using work ethic and that idea of saying no one's going to outwork me, making the sacrifices that maybe not everyone's willing to make to be able to make up for that lack of, talent that maybe the top guys have. But my question is, because I was the same way early on in my career, where the body can kind of withstand that redlining or just under that red line for a little bit longer, right? You recover more quickly. You have the ability to feel like you can run through walls when you're more of a fresh athlete, earlier 20s. As you get a little bit older, you start to recognize what you can and can't push through. But one of the things that really kind of made a difference in terms of me being able to say, push today, back off today, today we're going to go out of 10, today we're going to, use it as rest day, was having someone oversee this, and a coach essentially. And for me, my coaches throughout my career all played a really important role in the final outcome. But my final coach was the one that really understood how to manipulate my work on a daily basis and be able to say, today, I know what you need to do. I know what you need to push. It's not going to be on you to make that decision. I'm going to tell you, because we were so in sync with being able to make those decisions. Being able to do it on your own, I think sometimes gets a little bit challenging to be able to say, can you objectively make the decision as to what's right for you in this moment? Because our mentalities tell us to push. Our mentality as athletes, especially how we got to our level, was say, push no matter what. We push through the barriers because that's what's allowed us to have success. My coach allowed me to take that mentality away and say, let's do what's right for today. Not just push because we know we need to, but what makes things right according to where you're at, according to what's going to allow you to recover. I'm curious, Chad, you always program for yourself and you always had the most success without kind of an active coach on a regular basis. Scott, it sounds like it's you and your brothers and maybe Fee, not really someone on a daily basis overseeing kind of your programming or coaching. Have you had someone there, either of you guys, to kind of oversee some of those things, or to be able to lend an outside eye, to be able to say somebody that you respected and really looked to them for guidance when it came to this stuff? Or was it always on your own? Do you feel like that maybe was a detriment? You didn't have an outside eye in some cases?
Yeah, I think for me, especially, I didn't have anyone that I felt could speak life into what I was doing. And what I mean by that is like, the only people that truly know how I feel are my training partners. And that's it. Like, so there were times that I'd talk to my brothers, or I talked to Fee, and I'm like, hey, how you feeling? Like, and she'd be like, I'm feeling pretty wrecked. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And, we would make a decision together. But that's what's interesting about coaching in CrossFit. And it's something that I've always struggled to believe, that somebody can truly understand how we feel without actually doing it. Because the stimulus is, you're constantly writing constantly varied workouts. It's not like you're doing, like Chad's lifting program. Like, he has cycles that he knows, like, this is proven that it will get you stronger. And there is work, there is rest, there is work, there is rest. Like, it's not like constantly varied in that way. Right. And what we're doing, and I'm sure there is probably some variance in some shape or form throughout the years. But there's a little more structure to it, I would say, as opposed to like what we're trying to do is like, there's times we're doing lifts and then, we're working out, or we're doing workouts and then we're going into lifts. And, my brothers or Fee, they're like, hey, like, what percentage is this? And I actually go first, and I'm like, I'll let you know. And I just go by how my body feels. And I've figured that out. And I think I just never had the confidence in someone to tell me when to work and when not to, when I felt like I was the one responsible for making that decision. And that's really hard.
Sure.
When I followed Mayhem's program, the year I was on a team, I knew that whatever they sent me, someone did. And I was just like, my teammates did this, go do it. I don't care how tired you are, go do it. And that was me. That was, unfortunately, that was my mindset. And I think it's great, in a way that there's not a lot of people that maybe are thinking that way. And it makes me a little different. But also, it probably has brought me some unneeded injuries, like my knee or, my shoulder or my foot. Like it is what it is. Like I put myself into those situations.
It's a really interesting point. And I'm curious, I want to hear your point on this too, Chad, but this idea that now we have a group of former elite CrossFitters coming to the end of their careers, right? This first batch of like the spearheading of what it means to be an elite CrossFitter. Yourself, Khalip leaving, and Rich coming to the end of his individual career, and some of them going into the coaching world, and now Rich programming for Mayhem, but still being an athlete. But I'm curious because the reason why I bring it up and why it resonated with me is because my last coach, the one that was able to do this, was one of the best gymnasts ever. He was himself someone that could understand what it meant to be an athlete in those same situations. So it wasn't just a great coach. He was also a great athlete. He was world champion. He was in Soviet teams. He was incredible. He was like kind of this legend within the sport. So I knew that whatever he was putting me through, he had already gone through as an athlete. So maybe he wasn't doing that workout on that day to be able to tell percentages, but he had gone through the exact same thing. So I'm curious, and it's a question that we won't be able to answer now, but if this next, like your group, this group that went through the first 10 years that are now transitioning into becoming the next great coaches within the CrossFit world, will be able to do that for these athletes and to be able to say, all right, we're going to push, we're going to back off because I went through this. I might not be doing the workout with you, but I understand exactly what you're going through. Do you think that would have benefit?
Yeah. And that's actually what I'm looking to focus into. And in these next few weeks, I'm preparing to roll out some ideas and concepts with a team of people that I believe is going to create an opportunity for athletes that could potentially give them insight in that way, where it's not so much specific coaching, but mentorship in some way where when they have a question, they have someone to answer it, where they can focus on being an athlete and maybe, not having to worry about like, am I done? Should I be done? This is bothering me, should I rest? Should I work? And speaking life from the 10 years of experience that I've had. And I'm excited to figure out what exactly that looks like. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Chad, what about you? We've talked about this quite a bit, but I'm curious if you've had anyone in there that you would trust to be able to give you that kind of advice from a coaching perspective, as opposed to you just doing it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had 2 or 3 coaches through the years that wrote programs for me for certain phases and everything else. And I just feel like for me, in the end, I was always better off on my own, even though I did make a lot of mistakes and work myself backwards for, 2 or 3 years straight. I learned from that and became a better programmer for myself and for other athletes at this point. But I'm very much on the same page with Scott here. And I love how you just mentioned what you're planning on working on in the future. You're trying to create a program that's going to provide answers to questions that athletes may have, that's going to provide mentorship, and not necessarily saying, hey, this is the program, follow it to a T 100% no matter what, because I think that's what needs to be done. And Dave, I think your example of your experience with the coach that you had there towards the end is very rare. And I don't want to speak against coaches or athletes having coaches. I'm not saying that, but I think that you're going to be a very lucky athlete if you find a coach in any field that has the ability that Dave, your coach, had. It's you're very lucky. And I know I myself, I can't be that for someone.
Yeah, just to touch on that, his ability turned me off to wanting to be a coach because I knew I could never be what he was. And because, and you're exactly right. It's a rare quality. I'm just wondering whether or not it's possible to find that type of person.
Yeah. Well, and for you to be able to completely turn off that way. And to my point is that I think if you're an athlete at whatever level and you want to achieve whatever you want to achieve, you want to be the best version of yourself that you can be. You want to be the best athlete that you can be, whether that's just competing on a local level as a weightlifter or a CrossFitter, or going to the CrossFit games and winning the CrossFit games. My point is that you have to understand that more than likely you're not going to be able to 100% rely on someone else. You're going to have to learn as much about yourself as you can, and you're going to have to become disciplined, if you're not already, in making adjustments on the fly when you need to make those adjustments. And it's going to take time, and it's going to take experience. And you can have a coach, you can have a mentor, but they need to be open to that dialogue. They need to be open to these conversations, and you giving them a text, say, hey, I feel this way today, or I didn't sleep well, because nobody's going to know you better than you know yourself. You know how much sleep you got the night before. You know what you ate the day before, the day of. You know what you're going to eat that night. All these different things that are going on in your life that someone on the outside can know you very well, but they can't know you as good as you know yourself. So you have to learn to do that. And the athletes that I work with, I always tell them, like, hey, I'm not your coach. I'm your mobility mentor, your movement mentor, your technical teacher, but I'm not your coach. I will give you recommendations, and we'll talk back and forth, and I'll make the adjustments that need to be made. But what I'm trying to get across to them is I write by feel in your program for a reason. Like, yeah, a lot of times I'll write percentages, and hopefully you can follow those percentages. And if you follow the program the way that it's meant to be followed, we're going to control those times where you would be more down, if you went off the program where you would be more down. But there's a lot of by feel in there. And I need to teach you what by feel means, because I need you to be able to read your body and make decisions on your own. And you got to be able to do that on whatever program that you're on. And I'm always trying to educate people on that. There's no program, like I never wrote a program for myself, even for myself, as well as I know myself, that I was ever able to follow 100% to a T. There's got to be adjustments.
Mm-hmm. It's very wise, Chad.
I try to be wise. I try to be wise.
I love it. I love it, Chad. I think you're spot on with that assessment. Scott, we're coming up on our hour, but I don't want to get you out of here without talking about your brothers a little bit, if that's cool. Because
yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it's so unique what you guys have, and you being the older brother and having kind of helped guide a generation of CrossFitters, specifically your brothers, and them having the success that we're starting to see from them. I'm curious kind of what your perspective is. Has the competitiveness between you guys always been one such that, all right, I'm going to go out, try to beat them every time? Or are you an older brother kind of helping to guide them and say, I know at some point I'm passing the torch to these young guns?
Yeah. And I told them that early on. I was like, I'm going to keep going. And I told her, I was like, I'm going to keep going until you take it from me. And, sure enough, Saxon, took 5th place this year. So, yeah. I see it in both of them. They're both phenomenal athletes. They both will, I believe, go on to have very long careers. Working with them and watching them grow in the sport is one of probably the most fulfilling things that I've gotten to be a part of. And they've pushed me, like I said, that energy that I've had from training with them has pushed me throughout the years to want to come back and to kind of hold them off as long as I could. And, I want to be the big brother as long as possible. I want to be the alpha male, and, there were times when they first were getting to the point where they could beat me in workouts that it started to become a little bit of an unhealthy relationship because we were competing on a regular basis. So it was actually a year I went against Josh Bridges in an open announcement that I came out just guns blazing on a rower and died. And I was just like, man, like that's so like what I was doing in the gym at the time to like keep them away from me. So, coming back and refocusing and realizing like that was a immature athlete, and having a conversation with them about like being a mature athlete, what that means, being focused when you're training and their seasons that you compete, and push in moments leading up to events that can create a stimulus like a competition that will give you confidence on the floor versus training in the off season that, needs to be focused on getting better, moving efficiently, because the people that move well and efficiently are the ones that typically end up winning the workout. So yeah, that focus has definitely shifted as they've gotten better, and they are at their own gym, CrossFit Cliffside. I was training at CrossFit Mentality the past few years with Fee Sagafi, and having a female training partner was very healthy for me, because I didn't see it as more competition, but someone that just wanted to push next to me. And there were times that, I knew that the weight was lighter on the bar for how she could move it versus how I could move it, and it pushed me. And there were times that I was better at skills, or, the heavier weight was actually easier for me than it was for her. And it gave us this kind of I didn't see her as competition and someone that I had to beat on a regular basis to be the man. I saw it as hey, we are working hard, and having someone next to me, that is willing to go through that with me is special and pushes me. So having those guys, both Saxon and Spencer and Fee, has been amazing. And I believe that those two guys have a very, very bright future ahead of themselves. And I'm excited to, talk to them and mentor them in some ways that I wish I had in my career. And that was I always had an easy time telling them when to shut it down. And if they were beat up, telling them to hey, don't do that. But I was the worst, man. I was so hard on myself that it wasn't hey, go take it easy. It was suck it up, be better. And, but that's who I am. And that's probably why you shouldn't be your own coach in that respect. But you need to have 100% confidence in the person and the program that you're following. And as we sat down this year and discussed what our goals were as a team, for the upcoming year, that was one of the things that we discussed is find a program that you believe in, and that in a coach that you trust, and stick with the people that have experience and you believe that are going to elevate you in more than just one way of being an athlete, that understand who you are as a person, your responsibilities as a coach. Saxon's a father of 2. He just had twin girls.
Nice.
Wow.
So he's probably, his strength numbers will start to go up as well.
Exactly.
Just from that alone. But just that they understand those things. And I do. And I believe that mentorship, programming isn't something that I'm necessarily looking to get into on a high level, but I believe that the mentorship side of things is something that I'm very interested in, because I don't think there's a lot of people out there that can do that. There's not a lot of people that can look at it. You bring me your programming, I'll tell you real quick if it's good or not, or if it is too much or too little, or especially after watching you work out for a few weeks. I can tell you if it's enough, or based off of what you have going on in your life, going into events. There's a lot of things I learned at the 10 years of being at the CrossFit Games that I wish someone would have been hey man, when you start this swim, don't start in the middle of the pack. Get out to the outsides and stay to the outsides. And it's just little details like that. I don't think you can learn. I don't think a coach can necessarily know all of those things. But someone who has been there and done it can speak life and confidence into athletes in those moments when, they're a bomb's being dropped on their head because it's new and they've never seen it before. So I'm excited to continue working with Saxon and Spencer in some shape or form, as well as Fee and other athletes.
Amazing, man. We're excited to watch them carry on the Panchik tradition that you started for them. So we're already past our time, and I feel like we got through half of our questions, Chad. So clearly this is gonna be
we
part
can do it
one.
again. Yeah, we can do a part 2.
There you go.
Maybe we can do part 2 at Power Monkey Camp, because we haven't gotten you back to camp in almost 10 years, and it's about time we get you back out there again, man.
Hey, it just so happens my schedule's starting to free up.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And
I love hearing that.
I'm very excited about that. And that's something I've talked to some of the brands that I'm aligned with, and you know, and you guys like Power Monkey, like I now have time to go and be involved with the community more than ever. Because for a long time, like I would skip opportunities of getting out there because I need to train. I need to be in the gym 8 hours, or session in the morning, session in the evening, and, rest and recovery in between. And that was my work day. And I would not miss a work day. So having, more time and energy to put into things like that, I'm very, very excited to be a part of.
Nice. We'll lock it down, man. We'll make sure we get it on the agenda, get you back out again. And, we had your brothers come stop by for the first time in the spring. So they got to see camp for the first time. And we'll get the whole Panchik crew out there sometime soon.
That'd be great. I'd love that.
All right. So before we get you out here, quick questions, kind of rapid fire. First one, what sport or discipline you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
Weightlifting.
Nice.
I know. Chad was crossing his fingers.
I was hoping.
I like to lift.
Even with the handstand walk victory at the games, I mean, that made my heart so happy to see.
He's so good at handstand walking because he's so good with the bar overhead. So that's what it is.
So okay, I know it's rapid fire, but this is funny. So like, there's only like one workout. Like my wife told me, she's like, if you could have any workout written for you, what would it be? I was like, so out of all the years I've done CrossFit, I'm like, what it is. Like, I don't really get that excited, but I'm like, handstand walking with squat snatches paired together. I'm like, bring it on. I'll take on anyone in the world. Let's go.
You are a true power monkey. Our logo is what you just said.
Exactly. So there you go.
All right. Question 2. Any guests that you think would be great for us to have on the podcast?
The Panchik twins, Saxon and Spencer.
Yeah. All right. I think we gotta get them both on.
Bringing them both on together would be a great time.
All right. I love it. We got to make that happen too.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation for sure. Are they both being coached by Facundo? Is that correct?
Yes.
Saxon is. Yeah. Both of them?
Yeah. This past year they were. Yeah.
Nice. Good deal. All right. Next one. Any books you've come across here recently that you'd recommend to the listeners?
The Bible. I started reading it over COVID, and I always thought for the longest time that I was not equipped to read it. And, I started a Bible study this past year. Didn't feel I was prepared to do it, but, I realized very quickly that I don't need to know a lot to be able to share something. And when you pray, that's your way of speaking to God, but his way of speaking back to you is through that book. So there's a lot of good stuff in there that's helped me through some really tough times.
That's a great recommendation, man. I read through it. I can't remember exactly how long it took me, maybe like a year, but this was 15, 20 years ago now. But I remember just looking at it and being overwhelmed and thinking there's no way that I'll ever be able to read through this whole thing. So I'm not even going to try to start, but I just did a little, a little chunk at a time. Maybe some days that was a page, some days it was 2 or 3 pages. And over the course of time, you're able to get through it. So I think that's a great recommendation, and hopefully somebody else will pick it up.
Yeah, there's study Bibles out there too, that you can, there's little notes that they give you, and it's changed my life. I'll tell you what, it's been really helpful.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate that recommendation. Another one to add to the list there. Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure to see you again. I don't think I've seen you in person since you were out at Power Monkey Camp. How long ago was that? Was that like literally 7 or 8 years ago?
Yeah. I got to watch you lift. And it was my wife was there competing. I can't remember where we were at. Was it Nationals in
2019?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was in 2019.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah. So I got a chance to watch you throw down there, but I definitely need to get out there, and it'd be great to hang with you guys.
Yep, absolutely. Well, like I said, it was a pleasure, and we definitely need to do part 2. Anything coming up you want folks to know about, or do you have any parting words?
Yeah, I'm actually getting ready to release an app next month at the beginning of the month, and it's going to help everyday people with finding a workout to do based off of their equipment or specific exercises they want to see. So those are like even a little more detail than I've released. So anyone listening gets a little heads up, and there'll be more released on Scott Panchik on Instagram.
Nice. Very cool. Is there a name for that you can share yet, or that's still in the works?
Yes, it's called Unlocked. So
Unlocked.
big things coming with Unlocked.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, to our listeners, definitely be sure to keep an eye out for that. And of course, I assume you are all already following Scott on Instagram, so continue doing that. Also, be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also, check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.